Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So this video here, I'm going to be taking you guys through the primer, prep, masking and paintwork on this Volkswagen TSI Golf. The name of the color is Silver Leaf White Gold and the color code is 7B, and we're going to be using Standox Solvent based paint when we do the paintwork on it. So the job's obviously just rolled in from the panel shop, had the repairs done on it, and then it's time to prime it. I gave it a bit of a feather out around the edges, bit of a ScotheBrite, quick mask up, and I'm ready to put a couple of coats of primer on. The grey primer that you see down underneath the primer I'm putting down now is just some etch primer. So any bare metal, it's best off you use a bit of etch primer or some sort of a wash primer. It's going to help with your adhesion and corrosive protection and all that kind of thing. So then continue to apply 4 good coats on a repair like that. Usually when I've got a filler repair, so bog repair, Bondo, whatever you guys call it in the US, I like to put a good 4 coats on it. If it's been finished off really fine with say 180 grit and it's a repair I've done and I'm pretty confident that it's good, sometimes 2 or 3 coats can do, and obviously that'll depend on the kind of gun you use. And if you've got yourself a 2.5mm primer gun, 3 coats is probably going to be enough. At the end of the day, it's all about film thicknesses, but I prefer to use a 1.8mm for primer. Get the primer on a little bit flatter without so much orange peel. It makes it a little bit easier to block and less chance of sort of seeing some orange peel coming through when you do actually go and put your color on. But I will say that my apprentice, he does use a 2.5mm gun. It's the only one he's really got. It's a workshop supply gun, and he just puts 3 coats on. But to be honest, I'm not really going to complain about it because he gets enough primer on, but it is a lot thicker and chunkier than my primer work with my 1.8mm. So next up, what I'm doing is taking a few photos of the color. I've given it a really good polish up first. I got my little mini buff, gave it a bit of a polish up, and then got my Spectrophotometer, and I'm taking 3 readings of the original paint that's on there. I'll then go and plug that up to the computer. It'll scan the database. I'll be inputting some information into the computer to make it easier for the computer to find the exact color that I'm looking for. There is definitely some strong points to using the Spectrophotometer, but like anything, it's not foolproof. It can still trip you up, and even experienced painters and even myself, like I'd give it like a 7 out of 10 success rate, you know, and even then I would say 90 to 95% of the time I still need to adjust them, like a minor adjustment. As you can see there, I've had to censor my girly calendars because we want to keep it all G-rated here on YouTube, don't we? So anyway, we're continuing on. We've plugged our Spectro up to the computer. I'm then looking for the reading, so you got to sometimes wait for a minute until that reading comes up. I'll then go in, input the name of the car, or just whatever. You can leave it blank, and by default it will just name that reading, whichever reading you're up to. So if you're up to 198, well then it'll just give that color or that reading that number for you automatically. And some of the other guys do that. They don't bother to put the readings in there, but it does come in handy. Sometimes if I'm like, oh, 2 months ago I painted a car and the boss comes down, oh, you remember that car that you painted? I need you to paint a fuel flat for it. I can go straight up to the computer, search for the relevant dates, and I'll be able to find it because I've put the name of the car in or something like that. So it's handy to do. So while it's searching, I've gone and put my gloves on, got my gun ready, and ready to go and do a spray out. So yep, you can see that we have our reading, and we've got a bit of information up here. So you can see that there's 2 images there. One is our target and the other one is what we have on the database, and they're actually pretty accurate, I've found. Not 100%, sometimes it will trip you up, sometimes it'll just look perfect on that photo and then just come up absolutely terrible. But also like to go in and have a look at the tinters that are in the formula. Sometimes you'll look at a color and you'll be like, no, that doesn't need the coarse metallic in it, and that's just going to come with experience at the end of the day. Also have a look at those curves. Yeah, it's just something that's going to take a bit of time to get the hang of that computer system, and you're really not going to learn a great deal about it from watching this YouTube video. As much as anything, I'm just showing you the procedure. It's really going to take time and error, and trial and error, sorry, and time to figure out how to use it. But then obviously once we've got our color up, I put my can up on the scales, zero the scales out, print myself out a label and then continue to mix the color up. One of my pet hates is walking around looking for things that I have put back in the correct space, and as you can see, I've told people to piss off if they ever decide to look at my DeVilbiss pen and think, wow, I need a pen, because I need a pen there and then when I'm mixing my colors up so I can put my name on it, because there's about 3 or 4 of us painters. So it's always a good idea to sort of label your paint with your own name as well. So the label had most of the information about the color on there, but then I just put my specific name on it. So as much as anything, even the detailers out the back, when they're looking for touch-up paint, when they're detailing the car, they can say, well, who painted that one? And I'll say, yep, I painted it. All right, go look at Gunny's bench, and then they'll be able to look for the specific car itself. And I've just thinned the paint down, something that I've said a few times before, but I'll say it again. I don't usually go 100% by their mixing ratios. It might be a touch under 2 to 1, it might be a touch over. If you're not sure, just stick to the standard ratios, which is 2 to 1 with most solvent-based base coats I've found anyway. Yeah, sometimes I like to leave them a little bit thicker. I get better coverage, and yeah, if you were to miss like a slightly deeper sanding scratch as well, it'll also be more likely to fill in some of those sanding scratches. And I'll go a bit more through the prep work later on when we're ready to do the prep. But you can see here I'm just doing my spray out card. Pretty important when you are doing your spray out to replicate what you're going to be doing when you're in the booth. So use the same pressures, use the same distances. There's no use in going and using like 1 bar or 15 psi when you're doing your spray out card and then going and saying, well, that looks good, and then you go in the booth and you spray at 2 bar or whatever you spray out. And then you're like, oh, how come the color looks different? Well, the metallics are going to land in a different orientation when you're spraying at different distances and pressures and all that kind of stuff. Also, just take note of how well the color is covering when you are doing your spray out. You can see that those cards have a black and a white side on it, so you really get the good idea of if it's going to cover well or not. But as you can see here, it's a little bit light. It needs a bit of black and blue. It's not too bad, that color, as I say. Look, most of the time they do need a little bit of a match, but that's definitely not terrible, you know. Bit of a funny color, this one. It's got that effect white in it, a really weird type tinter. It makes them go like ghosty, milky, and it gives them like a blue flip and a yellow flop. But yeah, I actually quite like this color. Some of the colors that are out these days I think are pretty terrible, but each to their own, I guess. And as long as you're happy with the color that's on your car, who really cares what others think about it? But yeah, I'm just going to go up to the bench, up to the tinting rack, grab a bit of the blue, a bit of the black, put that in. I'll respray the color out, make sure I'm happy with it. And as it turns out, it really did just need that one adjustment. But that's always a good idea to come back, look at that formula, because sometimes I can forget, you know, exactly which tinter is in it. But sometimes you're best off keeping to the formula, but sometimes you really do just have to say, you know what, I need this color. That's the only color that's going to do it. But yeah, it's always a good rule of thumb when you're learning, I guess, to do painting. Just sort of stick to the formula, unless you've sort of asked your tradesman or someone in the know and they said, no, it needs this color. Because yeah, it can get a little bit confusing, but color matching is something that's really, again, just going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. Like, I had this guy sort of hating on me on one of my videos, and I had a bit of a conversation with him. He's like, man, why are you making these videos? You know, you're making it so that everyone's going to be able to go and take our jobs. And I'm like, man, but if you're confident in your own skills, you should know that it's not an easy trade, and it's not something that you're just going to be able to, and I've said it before, like, you won't be able to watch all my videos and then call yourself a really good tradesman. You're going to have to get in there, make those mistakes, get the runs, figure out how to fix them, figure out how to fix little spot repairs and all those kinds of things that you can do in this trade, all the things that can go wrong. Figure out how to blend silver metallics. You're not just going to learn that from watching a few videos. You might be able to pick up a few tips, ways to go around it, but you're really just going to have to figure it out like on the go as you go. So yeah, he was just being an idiot, and I don't really pay too much mind to him. It was just, I just found that I thought that was relevant, especially because color matching is one of those things that you will no way you will be able to figure that out from watching a YouTube video. Absolutely not. As again, you might be able to figure out a few tips, but even myself, sometimes I just get up to these colors and I'm like, man, what the hell am I going to do to that, you know? But that's where your workmates come in, you know? We're always sort of bouncing ideas off each other. The other guy that you can see there in the background, he's pretty good at color matching. I'm pretty good at color matching, but we both get tripped up sometimes. We're like, man, well, what happened there? We just misjudged it, you know? Like, we thought it looked good on the color card. We go and spray it out and it just doesn't look right or something like that. And that's where you got to learn how to do those little blends. Or if you need to just sort of flick a bumper corner in and just do a little fade out with the clear or something like that. It reminds me also of the time that I just started my YouTube channel and I'd painted my XF Ford Falcon, which I did a tribute paint job to the Peter Jackson racing livery. It's like it was around the late 80s, early 90s in Australian racing. And I just finished painting it. I took it down to a bit of a car show here in Perth, and I had a few Gunman magnets and stickers made up, a few business cards, and I had just a bit of paper that said learn how to spray paint. And there was 5 guys from Shannon's Auctions, or Shannon's Insurance. One of them came up all cocky and said, oh, if you can piss, you can paint. I had a look at him and I said, not like that. He takes one look at the car and he goes, looks at his mates and he goes, yeah, no, you're right. He then proceeded to take a business card and walked off. I found that was quite funny. So at the end of the day, the moral to the story is, yes, anybody can paint, but to be able to get good quality finishes, it takes a lot of time and effort. And I think it is quite rewarding when you can see the awesome finishes. I think it's a very rewarding career and trade. I still, after 16 years, get to go to work and do something that I love. You know, I don't think everyone can say that for their career. I also think that schools, especially here in Australia, should really be pushing the younger generation into trades. Like one of my old apprentices from back in Melbourne, he told me that he told his careers teacher that he wanted to become a spray painter. She gave him a funny look and said, why would you want to do that? No, I don't recommend that. Don't do that. And I just thought that kind of pissed me off. And I'm like, why, man? Why are they telling you not to? Like, if you've got a young kid that's interested in being a spray painter, you should be saying, go for it. Good on you. Our nation needs that. We need more young guys getting into trades, because we do. We've got skills shortages and we're importing people from all over the rest of the world. And I haven't got anything against people from the rest of the world, but at the end of the day, like, my country is always going to come first in my book, you know. And on the other side of it, they've done studies that find that people in trades can actually be a lot happier in life, you know. So at the end of the day, sitting down behind a computer on your ass all day might seem like a fun job, but then when your health is deteriorating at the age of 30, you're putting weight on because you're not getting any physical exercise, you're not going to be as happy as your counterparts. And even my brother, like, he did years of university to become a graphic designer, and look, I'm not going to try and fat shame him, but he's put weight on, and I would imagine that if he was in like a physical trade, that even though that this isn't an overly heavy lifting or anything like that, you're still on your feet all day, and I think it's healthy. And for me, even like, one of my mates, he's just retired at the age of 35. His name's Dead Farang, a fellow YouTuber, and he hates work. He just hates it, man. He likes just waking up whenever he wants, you know. But that's him. But as I say to him, I say, man, like, going to work, it gives me a purpose. And like, if I have too much time off, I just, like, it starts doing my head in. I sort of need to go to work and have a bit of structure in my life. I find myself mentally and physically healthier when I do go to work. And we'll continue on with the job now. I've had a bit of a rant. I don't know, this is my Sunday, sitting down, making a video. It's a bit of fun for me, and you get what you get at the end of the day. And thanks for hanging around and listening to me talk a bit of crap. So obviously you saw me just then cleaning the panels down really well. I was using a mixture of methylated spirits and water, so that's denatured alcohol if you're in America. So that's just around a 50-50 mix, and I find it just a good cleaning. It's got good cleaning properties to it. If you do have any really oily spots, just get a bit of Prepsol or wax and grease remover out. Any sort of tar and stuff like that, you might have to use that. But the that meth and water mix does quite a good job. It's basically the same thing as waterborne cleaner. At the end of the day, it's the same ingredients, but I just use tap water just because it's just a prep work clean. Make sure I clean all the edges, and that way way when I go to do my masking. It's all going to be clean, and I'm not going to have oily bits and dirty bits when underneath my masking. Cleanliness is next to godliness, as one of my old tradesmen used to say. So as you can see now, I've got it all wiped down. I've then got the block out, and I've got some 180 grit on there. Depending on the repair, how good it is, I might say even use right down to 320 to block it, even 500. As I was mentioning before, if I've done the repair and I've finished it off really fine and there's only a couple of coats on there, you might not even need a block. But yeah, every job's different. As you saw, this job here, there was reasonably sized filler repairs, so 180 grit's going to be what I would want to use on that. So you could put some guide coat down before you do block it if you like. There's some dry powdered guide coats, good ones on the market. 3M, been using it for years, swear by it. They've also got like these aerosol can ones. I don't really like them. They seem to stick the sandpapers up. Also don't like just getting the chassis black gun and spraying that over it. I find that just sticks your sandpapers up, and yeah, you burn through twice the amount of sandpaper just rubbing the guide coat off. So I've had a few people make a mention to the way I block. Now I try to do most of my blocking directional, because the way I see it, and I've been told by a few people like a long time ago, they say like when you're doing like side panels, you want to be sort of blocking in the direction of the car. Now I do a little bit of up and down and sort of crisscross action, but most of my blocking will be directional, so with the shape of that panel. But yeah, obviously just use your hands, feel it, get a bit of wax and grease remover, as I've showed you guys in other videos. Sort of spray that over the panel. You can then get your eye down on the side of it. That'll emulate the sort of wet look, and you'll be able to get an idea of if there's any still ripples left in the panel. But at the end of the day, this is smash repairs. We're not looking for restoration style. Everything has to be absolutely perfect. We've just got to return them to pre-accident condition. If there's a very small, like minor little ripple there, 90% of the time you get a bit of orange peel, or just a bit of texture from the paint on it, and you won't see it. Sharp dents, and you'll see me later on, there's a bit of a sharp dent around the rear door handle that wasn't part of the job, but I'm putting color there anyway, so I'll fix it. If there's any sort of dents and damage on blend panels, unfortunately we haven't got much of a choice but to paint over them, because the insurance company is not going to go and pay for us to blend the next panel, and we do need to blend our paint in most circumstances. Some solid colors will go edge to edge, and bumper bars we always go edge to edge on as well. But I would recommend on a job like this, some people might be looking at it and saying, well, why don't you just paint both the doors? There's no damage on the fender or the quarter panel. And that really is just so that we can blend that color out, and all we're going to be doing is putting clear coat up to the edges of the fender where it meets the bonnet and the front bumper bar, and also down the back at the rear bumper bar. So yes, we've got a pretty good color match, but even an extra coat of clear, like if I was just to do those two doors, extra coat of clear will actually just deepen, especially on a silver like this. It'll deepen the color up, and it will sort of 9 times out of 10, if not more, you can just about guarantee that there would be some sort of visible color difference there. But yeah, doing the whole side, especially on a silvers, yeah, the way to go. This is that small dent that I was telling you guys about before, just a bit of a parking dent, but I'm not going to go and paint over something like that so close to where the repair was. A little bit of fine filler in there, give it 15-20 minutes to dry depending, use the heat lights if it's cold, and continue on with the rest of the job. It shouldn't slow me down too much. I'm going to be using a bit of UV cured primer on that, just because it was unexpected, and I need to get it done sort of quicker. If it was a cloudy day and we didn't have any sun outside, then I would have just masked it up, put a couple of coats of 2-pack primer over it, put my heat lights on it for maybe 20 minutes or so, give it a quick hand sand or a buzz or whatever, and then continued on with the job. But yeah, I do really rate that UV cured primer. I've done a specific review on that. Go check that out if you'd like a little bit more info on it. But what I'm doing here, I'm just using 500 grit to go around all the edges. Sometimes it can work in your favor to do those edges, the primer edges, depending on how thick they are, with the 180 grit. When you block, like just after you finish blocking it, just run over those edges quickly with your 180 just to knock them down quickly, and then go over them with your 500 grit just to remove the 180 grit scratches. But once I've got that done, I'm then doing my blend panels, and I've just got some 600 grit doing my blend panels. I must admit, I probably wouldn't recommend this to most people. I'm pretty hardcore and I like to use the coarser sandpapers. It works for me. I don't get any shrink back. I don't get any sanding scratches coming through. However, if yeah, you're new to this, I really wouldn't recommend using 600. I'd probably say, especially if you're new to it, go even 1,000. but at least 800. And yeah, if you're using waterborne paint, I again wouldn't, no way would use 600 on my blend panels. I'd be going 600 where I'm putting color, but then 1000 grit on the blend panels. As far as the reviews goes, I've got quite a lot of reviews, and even from the start of this channel, it's always been a fairly big part of what the Gunman is doing unbiased reviews on products. Now, I know that not all people like them, and a lot of them, you know, they're not big view videos, but I enjoy doing them. I actually see them as more of a challenge. Like this kind of video, there's probably more for you guys to get out of this. Maybe a lot of people, I don't know. But there's also a small, or maybe not so small, amount of people that do seem to get a lot out of my reviews. As I say, I enjoy making them. I'm not really out there to try and push products down your throats. At the end of the day, I don't really care what you get or where you get it from, but I look at it as I'm providing you guys a service, as letting you guys know what things are good and aren't good on the market, because there are a lot of bullshit reviews out there, a lot of people out there who are just willing to sell their soul for a free spray gun or a sander or whatever it may be. That's not me. I even was just saying to one of my mates yesterday, I said, man, without my integrity, I'm nothing, you know. That goes, and then I can just picture, you know, selling out for whatever reason it may be, and just all my subscribers leaving, and that's the last thing I want, you know. And even if it not just be for the simple fact of a way for me to just share what some products look like, you know. If you like the DeVilbiss Nebula, I'd say 99.9% of the people that watch that video, they wouldn't buy it, but why not just have a look at it? Even the new Sagolas, you know, again, 99.9% of the viewers, they will never use it, and they might not even be interested in it. But at least you can see what it goes like, and you can see my opinion on it. But yeah, as far as buying products, the only thing I care is that you go over to the gunman.net.au shop and go and buy some t-shirts or buy some hats, stubby claws, whatever it be. I've actually got heaps of stuff over there. I've spent seriously hours and hours figuring that bloody store out. I was sitting in my room here one night, absolutely pulling my hair out. Well, actually, didn't have any hair to pull out. But if I did have hair, I would have been pulling it out, man. I was really just absolutely pissed off. But I figured it out, and I feel better after it, you know. Like, it's again, it's a sense of achievement. Sort of like what I was saying before about having a good day's work. You really get that sense of achievement out of it. I also get that same feeling out of making these videos. Like this video here, you might look at this and say, oh, that's just a 30-minute video. For how long could that take to make, you know? But this would be easily 7-hour video for me to edit and narrate. Like, I seriously sit here for over an hour easily to just do the narration on this. I'll go through it and I'll say, I wasn't happy with what I said there. No, I'm going to redo that again. I've got to then put these text layers in, and that takes bloody ages as well. But when it's done, I just get that really good sense of achievement, and I really enjoy it. And as I've said in previous videos, for me, my 2017 resolution is to only make them when I feel like them. So, previously, I used to put a lot of pressure on myself, and I used to feel guilty about the channel and feel like I really had to pump out as many videos, as much as anything for you guys, because they'd be like, oh, where's Gunman been, you know? But yeah, now it's just going to be, I'm going to make them when and if I feel like it. But yeah, I've always gone through sort of stages where I'll get really creative and I might say make 3 or 4 or 5 videos in a weekend, but then the next 2 weeks I won't make any. But what I would do is sort of schedule those videos over that couple of weeks. After a couple of weeks, I'd start to get that itch again and get back into it. Obviously, I cut most of the masking footage out because yeah, it can just get a little bit tedious to narrate, and it's pretty self-explanatory, I guess. However, I can do a few more raw videos, but in saying that, I do have already quite a few raw videos on masking, so go and check out my other channel, the Gunman Raw, if you would like some yeah, full masking sessions and painting and all that kind of stuff. I've got heaps of videos over there. Also got Gunman's World, where I haven't really got that many uploads over there, but I think it's around 10. You know, just that's a place where I'm going to do just like any vlog style videos, like from when I go to Thailand, and when my missus ends up coming over to Australia, which is looking like, well, it should be pretty soon, I hope so. When we go on holidays, I might even take the cam out around Australia and do, yeah, just some different style videos. See if you guys are interested in it. So obviously, before I started putting any paint down, I wiped it down with wax and grease remover or Prepsol, I then wipe that off with one of those lint-free cloths, one of the blue Sontara wipes, and then I'm giving it a good wipe over with the tack cloth, and then just putting sort of medium to wet coats. Like, I had the guy that actually made all my t-shirts and all that come over the other day and having a chat with him, and he said that this apprentice or some young guy was in at his workshop doing some paintwork, and he's doing like a gold metallic roof, and he goes, man, you're doing that way wrong. And he's like, no, I've seen it on YouTube, man, you got to like smash it on as much as you can. And he's like, no, that's the clear, you know. So yeah, any sort of unexperienced guys with your base coat, you really don't want it on too wet. You go and put it on too wet, the metallics are just going to land all wrong. Rungs in your base coat, if you're getting rungs in your base coat, you're doing it like you are so far away from what you should be doing. There would literally be, in my entire career, 16 years, I could count on one hand the amount of times I've had a run in a base coat, and if I did, it would just literally be like on the inside of a door jamb. And as I say, very, very rare that you should be getting it on that wet for your base coat to run. Another thing is that the wetter that you're going to put that paint on, it's going to just take a lot longer to dry. So you go medium wet, like sometimes you're better off putting an extra coat on, but not so heavy, and that'll even end up working out quicker in the long run. But you can see there, I'm just blowing a bit of air from the spray gun over in between coats. Like, I actually had a paint rep come in and tell me, oh, no, you're not meant to do that. You can't do that with solvent, man. And I'm like, man, I've been doing it like my whole career, and I've never had any issues with it. And then another paint rep from exactly the same company, I said, like, just quizzed him just out of interest. I'm like, oh, what are your thoughts on blowing air over solvent base instead of water? And he's like, man, I've done it forever. There's nothing wrong with it. So two people from exactly the same company have conflicting views on it. And it's not like I was going to stop doing it anyway. I was just sort of quizzing them on it and just interested to see what they'd say. So my verdict is there's nothing wrong with doing it. Like that, some people say, oh, you can just skin the top over and you can trap the solvents in. And I'm like, well, you can do exactly the same with water. You can skin the top over and trap the water in. So if you're careful and you know what you're doing, it shouldn't be an issue. I don't usually blow dry the last coat of base coat unless small part and I've really just got to get it done because it's going or something like that. I might walk into the booth with all my guns and then yeah, just blow it down after the last coat of base coat. But 90% of the time I literally just put this last coat on, walk out of the booth, and then by the time I've mixed the clear up, I'm usually right just go in and clear it. Unless it's the middle of winter, then your flush off times are going to obviously be extended. When possible, you can turn the booth up, you know, the temperature on the booth if you have a heated booth, which we're lucky enough to have. But one downside of this booth is that being it's so big, it's a really nice sized booth, but the burner on it is the same size as the smaller booth, and it really struggles to get anything above sort of 25 degrees even in the middle of winter, you know. Summer it's really a non-issue, but yeah, in winter it can be a bit of a drag, you know, especially on the colours that don't cover so well. So what you saw me putting down before I put this last coat of base coat on was just the base coat stabilizer. So it's basically just clear base coat. It's got a little bit of a yellow tinge to it, so a lot of the time you probably notice that I keep it just off the edge, so we're not deepening up that colour too much. There is specific really clear base coat blenders, but 599 works fine for me. I just mix that at 1:1 ratio with standard base coat reducer, and off you go. And as you can see there, that's blended out quite nice. The entire side looks all the same colour. And as I was saying before, if I hadn't have blended into those surrounding panels, I just about guarantee that we'd get it outside and you'd have a minor colour difference, if not a major one, you know. So yep, you might be doing a couple of extra panels, but you're saving yourself a headache later on down the track and an eyesore for the poor customer. Unfortunately, I do see some pretty average paintwork out there when you're just driving down the street and that. But yeah, I forgot to mention the gun I was using. So I was using my favourite base coat gun there for base coat. That was the Sagola 4600. DVR Aqua air cap was on it, and that was the digital version. And this is basically the same gun. The only real difference is that this is the non-digital version. So as you can see, I've got the manometer down the bottom of the gun rather than having the built-in digital gauge in the handle that I have on my base coat gun. So the air cap, again, that's another slight difference, but you could take the air cap off this and put it onto the other one, and vice versa. And this gun here, so the clear coat gun I'm using, that's got the 1.3 XL instead of the 1.3 that I've got on my base coat gun. But yeah, these guns are like, they're amazing, you know. I really am looking forward to getting some feedback on like some painters in the industry. I'm yet to really see them in the hands of many people. Like I think a few sort of big YouTubers and stuff like that got some of these guns, but apart from that, the general populace, I haven't seen many people who've actually gone out and bought them and said, man, I love that gun. But I would be extremely surprised if someone bought one of these new Sagolas and turned around and said, man, I don't like it. It's kind of like a DeVilbiss crossed with the Sada. Got the speed of a Sada, but it's just got the familiarity of a DeVilbiss, which to me is important because I've always been a DeVilbiss sprayer. Even little things like just having the knobs in the same spot as the DeVilbiss, it's a big plus for me. And it's just got a nice feel in the hand. It's not overly bulky, heavy, weighty. It's a well-built spray gun. But yeah, I absolutely love it. I don't use it on every job. I have slowly started using the Pro Light again, but this gun had top spot for 3 months, without a doubt, you know, easy 3 months. So that's really saying something, because most of the time when I would get a gun, I'd review it, I'd use it, and after a couple of weeks I'd be like, you know what, I'm going back to this DeVilbiss Pro Light, and it just, you know, felt so good. Every time I went back to the Pro Light, it was just a great feeling. But now I am, you know, on the fence if I actually even prefer this. Like 100% I do prefer my Sagola over the DeVilbiss Basecoat. Like that Aqua Basecoat gun, absolutely love it. Like I did a couple of bumper bars at the same time. I had the GTI Pro TE20 Aircap 1.3, and then I had the Sagola DVR Aqua, and painted a bumper bar with each for base coat. And I actually preferred the Sagola. I found it just put a bit more material on, and it just got that bit of a nicer atomization. I was able to move a little bit quicker. So at the end of the day, they're both great guns, but yeah, I'm using what I'm happiest using. Like, trust me, this is not product placement, I'm actually excited in myself actually just to finally have a gun that I really like to use that's not a DeVilbiss, you know. The Sadas have never really felt that right for me. Sometimes it just feels like they put a little bit too much material out. A big part of that is to do with the fluid tip sizes, and like I was using a 1.4, little did I know it was probably around a 1.6. So, you know, I would grab that gun, there was someone else's, and you just read what's on the, you know, the tip, and you'd think, well, it's a 1.4. I'm used to using a 1.4, but why is he spraying like a primer gun? If I was actually to have measured it, I would have realised why it was spraying the way it was, and maybe I needed to dial it in a little bit more. But either way, I know there's lots of Sada sprays that love their Sadas, each to their own, I guess, and it's not to say that they're a bad gun, it's just personal preference. But there you go, I've actually managed to sit down and talk your guys' ears off for about 30 minutes. I must say I've done quite well, and a big thanks for everyone who has stayed around to the end. Again, make sure you don't forget to give it a big thumbs up or thumbs down if you don't like it. I've actually got a bit of a theory that thumbs up, thumbs down, it actually doesn't even matter. It's all feedback at the end of the day, and I've literally had this one video, like that red Range Rover Evoque that I sprayed recently, that has gone absolutely nuts, man. It is sitting there at like 150,000 views. It's been getting like record numbers for me. I've never had a video do this before. So I'd also like to say a big welcome to all my new subscribers. Thanks for subscribing. Be sure to stick around for loads more paint videos in the future. Don't forget to go and check out my shop where you can buy some really cool Gunman merchandise. The hats are pretty cool, stubby coolers and all that. Now you've seen this video, get out there and paint some shit. Thanks for watching, and this has been another Gunman production. Goodbye.